James Ernest of The Growing Truth, here with my guest on MMA Ground and Pound, Kurt Holobaugh. Kurt, what sports did you play growing up?
Oh, I played a few. I played football, played high school football. I attended a little bit of karate whenever I was way younger, probably about 6 or 7. But football was really my main sport.
What position did you play?
I played receiver and defensive back.
So what was your transition into MMA like?
I've always been a fan, so whenever I was younger, I kind of wanted to box. I was really into the Mike Tyson and Evander Holyfield fights. My parents would order the fights, and I would stay up late nights watching them, and, it was something that I really enjoyed. So whenever mixed martial arts come around, even in the early UFC days, I was still watching. I was still watching Tank Abbott, Mark Coleman, right when Tito burst onto the scene, Chuck Liddell. So I was a huge fan of that. And after I graduated high school, I recently heard about some of my fellow classmates that I heard was cage fighting, and I'm like, man, to me that was one of the coolest things in the world. So I went and found a gym and started training myself.
With being 8-0 as an amateur, did you feel prepared going into that first professional fight?
Yeah, I really did, and that was kind of our goal. Even my head coach, Raphael Ellwanger, told me, he was like, once we get around 8 fights, he's like, I don't mind you going pro. We'll find you an opponent, and see how you start faring out. Even after my 4th amateur fight, he looked at me and he said, can't wait to see you in the UFC one day. And to me, at that time, it was just, it was something I really couldn't even imagine. It was just, I was like, okay, cool, that would be cool. And then all of a sudden, I just keep winning fights, and it happens.
You've been so very proficient with finishes as part of your career. Do you attribute that to your coaches?
Most definitely. My coaches, my teammates, my family, everybody that is always telling me that I can do it or I can go as far as I want to go. Everybody that's helped out and told me that is what's really made me believe that it could be done.
So why'd you fight on the wedding day?
That was it just seemed like something fun to do. We was going to be down in Biloxi. I had a fight. And, my fiance at the time was pregnant with our 3rd kid. And she was like, let's just get married on the beach. We have a little small get-together. And I'm like, all right, well, if you want to. So, that's what we did.
Was it before or after the fight?
It was about 2 or 3 hours before the fight.
Getting signed with that final Strikeforce card, was it bittersweet with it being the last one of theirs?
Yeah, it was. I was a fan of Strikeforce, and even when they called me and told me they had a fight offer for me, and I'm like, all right, well, I honestly didn't care who it was. And, it turned out to be Pat Healy, which was the #1 contender at the time, to fight Gilbert Melendez for the Strikeforce lightweight title. So I'm like, yeah, I'll definitely take that fight, because they even offered me the UFC contract after that, because, the UFC had already bought Strikeforce at the time. So whenever I signed the contract, I signed a 4-fight deal with Zuffa. So I just knew that I had to go in and perform well and show them that I was able to fight at that level. And, I went out there, made a bunch of rookie mistakes, but, I still put on a good show and showed that I can fight with the best. But I love Strikeforce, and that was a really fun fight for me. I loved that environment of Strikeforce down there, and being in Oklahoma was a really cool place to have it. So it was fun.
Was that one of the turning points in your career? Because a lot of people say that fight, despite your mistakes in it, just how aggressive and just how you continue to go for the submissions throughout the whole fight really impressed a lot of people and put you on the map.
Yeah, I think that was a huge fight for me, and I think that fight's really done a lot, even though I've lost that fight, because I've learned a lot from that fight. A lot of the mistakes that I've made, I haven't made again, even though I have lost fights prior to, or after that, and I've still made mistakes. I don't think I've quite made that many mistakes. So, I take a lot away from that fight.
Could you tell us a little bit about Titan FC? Because not everybody is familiar with that promotion as some of the other promotions.
Well, Titan FC first started years back. They had Titan FC. And I think even Bobby Lashley has fought on it. They had some big name guys fight on it. It used to be on the HD net back when they had that. And I'm pretty sure it was based out of Kansas City. Well, I was with a management company at the time, Alchemist. And I think they had some people buy Titan FC, and they kind of like rebranded it. So whenever I got cut from the UFC after the loss to Steven Siler, they brought me over there, signed me to like a 4-fight deal, and they actually moved it from HDNet to CBS Sports Network, so it was live on TV. And I think they had their first fight back was like February 14th of 2014, and the main event was Mike Ritchie versus George Christel. So it was a pretty big card. He had some pretty big names on the card. I fought Eric Marriott, who was an Ultimate Fighter contender on one of the seasons, and I got a big victory over him in my first Titan FC fight, and they had a bunch more from there. So I actually they actually went from CBS Sports after a couple fights on there to UFC Fight Pass, and that's where they're that's where they air at now, is on Fight Pass. And I've had a lot of memorable fights in Titan. I've won 2 World Titans with Titan. So Titan to me is a pretty top organization.
It sounds like it. I mean, with those type of names that they're getting, it's that it feels like it's just right, right up there with them. Maybe one notch below the UFC, but still, that AAA kind of feel to it or something. With where you're going to get those next big talents coming from there.
Oh, most definitely. And if there's a lot of guys that already came from Titan that's in the UFC right now. So Titans always did a pretty good job of signing some top guys out there. Like if there's a top guy that's from UFC or from Bellator, then they sign them. Most of the guys that I fought in Titan were Bellator veterans. The first guy, Eric Marriott, fought Joe Warren. Desmond Green was in the Bellator tournament. Lloyd Woodard has a big win over one of the Pitbull brothers in Bellator. So, those are some big wins that I've had against those top guys.
Obviously, this isn't something you do in the ring, but your entertainment company, Sucker Punch, how important have they been to your success?
Sucker Punch has been huge. They're a huge part of why I'm in the UFC right now. Maybe they are the main part why I'm in the UFC right now. Ever since signing with those guys, they helped me out and kind of like rebranded me, because I was to the point to where, I basically had to start over. I was on a 5-fight win streak. Thought I was going to go back to the UFC. It didn't happen. Then I dropped 2 straight fights, and wind up signing with those guys, and they've really picked me back up and got me to where I am now.
After that huge win at UFC, the Dana White show, how does it feel to be back in the UFC?
It's amazing, because it's one thing to make it to the UFC, but it's another thing to get cut and then have to make it all the way back. So it's been a long road back. I've had a lot of great fights, gained a lot of experience outside the UFC, but, it's my time. I'm back, and I'm ready to take over.
Yeah, that is one of the amazing things about looking at your track record, is just how many people you fought all around the world. I mean, does that experience really positively impact your career, you feel?
Absolutely, because, I feel like I've there's nothing that I haven't seen before. I feel like I'm a true veteran of this sport now. I've made the long trips. I've made the rough weight cuts. I've fought the tough opponents in other countries. So, I think from here, the only place to go is up.
Of your teammates that we might not know of yet, who is that next big thing that we should keep an eye on?
The next big thing is a guy we call Magic Michael McDonald. Right now he's had a really bad year finding fights. He's even tried getting into boxing, and he's 0-1 in boxing, but he went the distance with a pretty talented boxer. And then he had a second boxing match scheduled, and the guy pulled out because he was an MMA fighter, and they thought something was up. So he's had a really rough year. I've been trying to get him on the Titan card. He just recently signed with Sucker Punch Entertainment, so he's in good hands now, and you can definitely expect to hear his name out soon. Excellent.
And then what should we expect from you in 2018? Obviously, with signing that big contract, I'm guessing a lot of fights with UFC?
Most definitely. I got a 4-fight contract, and I look to get at least 3 of those fights in 2018. So I should be back in the cage somewhere around the end of April, hopefully end of April, early May. And, I'm going to start picking up these wins, and, I want to break that top 15.
If fans are wanting to find out more about you on social media, where would you recommend them check out?
Follow me on Twitter at Kurt Holobaugh, and I got an Instagram, K Holobaugh, Facebook, Kurt Holobaugh. Anything that you want to know, you can find out on those 3 sites, basically.
Excellent. Before we let you go, any final thoughts you want to share with the fans about your career, or about just the impact different people have had on it?
Yeah, just keep your eyes open, because I'm gonna make the UFC division fun, and I definitely look forward to being champion one day.
Excellent. We wish you the best, and we would love to have you back on the show after your next big UFC fight.
Absolutely. I appreciate you having me.
Thank you, Kurt.